Perfect. Well, that was a bit of a mess. Wonder if, yeah, it should be working fine. Okay. Just doing a little bit of work here while we're at it, while we're getting set up. Okay, we'll try this again. Still a rough run getting things organized, obviously. But we go live in 10 minutes here, which does mean we go over here. Whoops. Grab that and bring that over to this side so we can see what we're doing. And nope, don't need to worry about that. We need to worry about that, but yeah, we seem like we're a little. Hey, way to go, Lawrence. How you doing? Just getting a few things started before I get set up. Before I get going. But glad to see you. It's a little bit of a sketchy start this morning, but nice to see you're already in the line here. What do we got here? Still trying to figure out the timing on setting these things in place. Well, I think that's the fastest. Well, no, I know this is fastest. And yes, since you're the only one in here right now, I did get your message. And absolutely, pick a time and we'll set something up. Of course, today is possible probably after 1 p.m. from as far as your question goes. The one you asked me the other day. Now, just a thought. But I am going to be so busy for the first part of today. Well, I got a late start is half the problem. So now it's a question of getting everything moving in the right direction. But fortunately, we have our car. Oh, good, we got that. I will say there is a question. There is a question that somebody's been asking. I'll repeat this again anyway. Somebody has been asking very emphatically, very politely, but they're extremely interested in this idea of Atlantis. So I'm going to make it an official issue at this point, regardless of the questions that come up, or regardless of the topics that come up after that during the show today. I will be dealing with Atlantis next week because I had to postpone it for a reason for today. So that's just the way that goes. Now, what am I looking for here? Toby. There we go. Just putting these out. Look. Going live on YouTube in 10 minutes, in 5 minutes. See, we did cut this close. Let me pick that up. You copy that and see where we are. Look. There we go. Let me pick all that up. Okay, theoretically that will work. Okay, now one other person I gotta get a hold of here. This is why I say it's just the preliminary, because I got 5 minutes before no. So I gotta get things organized to be able to do this properly. Tell you, definitely trying to get started when you're a little scattered. Usually I've been up for 3 or 4 hours. Today I managed to get up about an hour ago if I'm lucky. So where are we here? Okay, and that would be the important one. Well, actually, they're all important. That's the funny part about it. Gonna have to deal with that as I go along. Gonna try something a little different today because I've got it set up to do so. And where are we here? Go back to there. Well, come back to that in a second. What do we got? About 3 minutes. Yeah, talk about cutting things tight today. But what the heck? Okay, so that let Facebook, the majority of it, know. This is, we go into here. And we go, nope, no message. Want you out of the way. Here we are. Okay, and in about 2 minutes. Okay, perfect. Let me take a look at that. Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, and that's perfectly understandable, Lawrence. I'd be more concerned if you were here with your wife in the hospital. But absolutely best wishes regarding all of that. Hey, you're definitely going to be where if you're with your wife, you're absolutely going to be where it is required. Where you're supposed to be. Hopefully, it's not something critical. I mean, obviously, a surgery itself is a royal pain to start with, but hopefully, the surgery isn't because of something that is life threatening per se. But just the one thing you're more than welcome. One thing I have found very often is that people have a tendency. A doctor will say, take your time. Take your time. You need this much time to heal. Now, I suspect very strongly that your wife is one of these people that is, that's definitely not life threatening. Any more than normal surgeries go. But you may want to get a roll of duct tape handy, because if your wife isn't anything like I suspect she is, getting her to stay sitting down to let it heal could be a real challenge. And that's a credit to her, by the way. Heck, I was when I had my major heart attack a few years back. Well, back in 13, so 10 years ago. I was only in the hospital for one night. I was a really neat shade of gray when I went in there, though. But no, most people I've talked to that have had knee replacement surgery, it's worked like a charm. It took a little while to get it organized, to get used to it, as it were. But it's one of those things that it's a pretty routine issue at this point. Pretty routine operation. Myself, we looked at knee replacement for me and found out something rather remarkable. My knee, the doctor that looked at it says, with your knee, we can replace it, but the issue is, he says, the only way I can guarantee it'll work is if I buck it off at the hip and start over. But then understand, mine got destroyed when I was 12. Right smack in the middle of a whatchamacallit. It was 12. It happened right smack in the middle of a 7-inch growth spurt. Now, where is the one that I need? Because I think this is where this comes in. Just trying to make sure everything goes up right. There we go. And this is the easiest way to find it. Oh, perfect. And now we go to there. Found a way to find this live stream on YouTube easy enough. Okay. There we go. Oh, wow. Nope, that just cut all that up. Perfect. Now, this is where this comes in. Where are we here? We are at 8:01, so we are live. Now we're just waiting for a few minutes to see what happens before we really get into it. But for those of you this is more in benefit of the people coming in that are watching this later. But my name is R. Keith Andrews. I am a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. Now, today on Remembering Yourself, we're discussing soulmates. Soulmates, soul twin flames, and soul families. Now, there's a lot of people out there that have their own view on it. Mine is not the only view. Mine is just the only view I have. Okay. Now, there is a very big difference between a soulmate and a life mate. There is only one soulmate that you ever deal with. There can only ever be one. And that sounds really bad, but that is literally the case. There can be only one soulmate. And momentarily we will get to why. A life mate, on the other hand, is what most people in today's world are actually seeking. And that there are multiple options of life mates. Many people that you can get along with well enough that you can enjoy being around to, enough to spend the rest of your life with. But a life mate is a corporeal thing. Okay, that is the individual you spend your life with for this corporeal life. A soulmate goes so far beyond that, way back to where your soul began. Now, how do I, from my standpoint, have I had a life mate? Yes, you call it marriage. And that simply boils down to somebody that you've decided, I like this person well enough, I get along with them well enough, that I'm going to spend the rest of my life with it. Now, here's the problem, and this may go against some of you. Okay, a life mate, most people chalk that up to marriage. But sadly, it's sad to say the marriage paperwork does nothing for commitment levels. As we've seen, saying I'm married, saying I love you, saying till the end of, till death do us part. First thing you got to realize with till death do us part, that is the death of the emotional connection, not necessarily the physical body. Okay. Yeah, just a side note there. Laura, it's just something I noticed here. I was just thinking about it. They talk about duct tape being a cure for everything for a lot of people. That method works like an absolute charm, although I will tell you, if you do that to somebody, they will likely scream about it. Now, a life mate is the person you choose, but what they don't tell you when you're getting married is that death that is being referred to is the death of the physical body. Okay, it is not correction. Boy, did I screw that one up. That till death do us part is the death of the emotional connection. Bernadette, welcome aboard. Well, think of it this way. There has to be a first time for everything. So you made it this week. I will be, just so you're absolutely aware, Saturdays, 8 a.m. till 10 a.m. Pacific time, I will be on live. And on Sundays from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m., I will also be on live. The real key factor there from your standpoint, and from everybody's standpoint for that matter, is that I will be talking about the same thing tomorrow, like on each day, on Saturday and on Sunday. I cover the same topic. And the reason for that is because I've got some people on the eastern side of the planet and some on the western. This way, people are not left out on one topic or another. It opens the door to let everybody get to the same topic. Now, like I said, life mates are very different from soulmates. Okay, I'm not going to go into a whole lot in life mate today because, like I said, today is about your soulmate. People talk to me all the time, when am I going to find my soulmate? And what they're usually referring to is their life mate, a person to spend the rest of their life with. But here's where a soulmate is. Okay. Well, so what we do is this. Yes, I've got scrap paper, so you get to see my wonderful artwork today. And I will use that with a whole handful of salt. Don't believe this is solid. It's good artwork. Okay, we start with the obvious issue. Okay, your soul, and we're just going to do it this way. There's a whole lot better pictures that can be used. But your soul is you. Now, here's where the soulmate comes in. Okay. The soulmate, there's you. Okay. And when the soul splits into two, because they always split in two. Now, it's funny because when you look at reality, there are three parts to everything. It's built on threes. So what this boils down to is this. You have the soul. You have, when it splits, you've got the soulmate. The third is here. 1, 2, and everything else. Everything that is not encompassed by these two souls, by these twin souls, or soulmates, if you will. These soulmates, you have the one soul, you have the other soul, and you have everything that is not either of those two. Okay. That is your soulmate. That's the only time it happens. Okay. And that soulmate, the soul is this one. The first time it splits. That's your soulmate. Lawrence, yes, the answer there is sometimes. Lawrence is asking, do soulmates some occasionally become life mates as well? The answer is definitively yes. Okay, it doesn't happen very often, in all fairness, but it does happen. And I suppose I should get to that as well. The easiest way to tell if a soulmate is, if this is your soulmate, is it's not if you can live with them. The real big challenge that is one indicator is that the person you're trying to connect with, that you're aiming at spending your life with, if it is someone you cannot see yourself living without. Okay. Living with someone is great, but being really hard pressed to live without them is a good indicator that this is a soulmate. Okay. Many times, if you take a look at most of the time, you'll take a look at the individual that you're connecting with, and they will have very parallel experiences. They won't be the same, exactly the same by any stretch, but they'll be very parallel, or they will be almost diametrically opposed. The two can happen. You can have them running side by side and just not connecting, or you come from two so different worlds that you complete each other in a very definitive fashion. Okay, where nobody can turn around and tell you, no, when you see two people that go, those two just don't make sense together. You take a look at the multimillionaire and the pauper on the street. Okay, those two are so far apart, socially speaking, it would not be a shock to find a pair of them connecting. Okay, and this is why age does not matter. For a life mate, age may matter. For a soulmate, it really doesn't, because you're talking people that are in excess of millions of years old. Okay, the other question that goes hand in hand with that is, do soulmates, do they have past lives together? More often than not, there are multiple past lives, but this is not necessarily the case. More often than, just bumped the computer. More often than not, a soulmate, two soulmates will have crossed paths in past lives as well. Now, you may even have crossed paths this lifetime, but for whatever reason, you had something you had to tie off. Okay, but this issue of the soulmate only happens on the first split. Okay, now this is why I made sure I had a little bit of scrap here, because my artwork is so absolutely incredible, you just wouldn't believe it. Lord knows I can't believe how bad it is. But this is why I've got somebody else doing the other artwork for me. So we have the soul. I'm going to put this up on paper and up on the screen in just half a minute. We have the soulmate. Then we have this. Okay. Now, here's where things start to get a little complicated. Now, I got the stick people down to a fine art, Bernadette. I managed to draw stick people that fell down the staircase and landed in the carburetor beautifully. But, I do my best. But thank you very much. Everybody has their talent. Everybody has their skills. And this is why it's going to take everybody to make this world work properly. But here we go. And entering into exhibit number 3, we have the soulmate, the next step. You've got your soul. This one is a soulmate. Okay. Now, when each of these separate the next time, we end up with these two. Okay, and I should have done this. Okay. Now, this next step, okay, you've got each of these souls, your soul and your soulmate, okay? You've got each of those that split into a new soul, into a new set. Now, these two are soulmates, okay, same as up here. But when we take a look at this one, we'll just chalk this one up to being you, okay? Either one of these, because this is split, because this one here now is split in two, this is no longer a complete entity. Okay, so this one, either one of them are your twin flame. Okay, they are part of the soul. Now, this is still you, but either one of these are your twin flames. So what you really have is you've got a soul, you've got your soulmate. Yeah. Yeah, and there you go right there, Lawrence. Lawrence is just stating that his wife and he and his wife are polar opposites and 10 years apart. Okay. But crossed end up in the same place multiple times before they met. Now here's the neat thing there. This is why age doesn't matter. Okay, if you're polar opposites and yet you complete each other, this is a pretty prime indicator that you're dealing with soulmates. Okay. Now, the neat part here when we're dealing with this, okay, is because these two are not complete anymore, they're separated. These two soulmates, either one of them, because they're no longer complete, are the twin flame to you. Okay. And we're just going to stick with the one individual, okay? Don't worry about this guy. He's going to go off and do his own thing. Okay, but the whole reason that we pare down, that we break into smaller parts, is because the energy contained inside an individual soul is so extreme. It is so extreme that you end up with a simple problem. It burns the corporeal body out. And I've yet to see a corporeal body that can actually handle the entirety of the energy of a soul. So now we're going to go one step further here. Okay, and if I'd had the time to do it, I would have actually done this earlier. Okay, I would have actually dealt with this before I got online, but unfortunately I ran into technological complications. Okay, so now what you're looking at is you take a look at this. What is it? It says set here. Hope I broke that down right, but I'm thinking not. So if I mess this one up, I'll know in about 30 seconds here. But we have your soul. We have your soulmate. Okay, then we end up with this set here. You've got your twin flame. Now the twin flame, as you can see by this circle here, when these ones split again, now we've got 4. Now everybody from here down, okay, and I knew it was going to screw it up because this should actually continue down this way. Okay, you've got your twin flame here. And then as it breaks down, everything from there down is your soul family. Okay. So when you're talking about that's where the big difference is. As far, and hopefully this is making sense to you. Lord knows I'm confused enough as it is for all of us. But that ultimately is where you look at the soul family. Now, why do we have soulmates? Why break down at all to get into the corporeal field? Well, that is the basic line for it. The primary purpose for paring down and breaking the soul down further is when we came into this world. Ain't that a scary thought, Lawrence? Lawrence just commented. Oddly enough, it does make sense. Now, the reason that we pare down, when we came into existence, okay, we were created literally, we were told, go forth and multiply. And the idea there was simple. You take your soul, it could only learn so much, because with so much energy coming in, with so much information coming in, bear in mind, for the soul, time is not a relevant concern, because the soul does not think in past, present, and future. It lives by now. And that's it. Corporeal forms have a time frame. They've got a certain amount of time that they will live for. Okay. So by paring down the energy levels, now if you think about it, we start doing this, and we're just going to put one more group in here. Okay. We're just going to put this one more group. And here's what you end up with. Okay, your soul family will continue to grow, but as you pare down and get into smaller amounts of your soul, okay, the energy level is split equally amongst them with the same capacity. Okay, they still have the same creative ability. They are absolutely the same. But the energy levels are a little lower. And the reason for that is because with the energy levels too high, they will burn out a corporeal body. Now, here's the other one I'm going to do here. But all of these people, as you can see, it starts getting bigger. So we do it this way. You start off with a soul. Then you've got your soulmate. Then you've got the soul. Then you've got your twin flame. And then you start into where you're starting to deal with the entirety, which is your soul family. Now, I'm just doing on here something you can actually do on a calculator for yourself. Okay. To give an idea of how many you're looking at, okay, you have the first one is your soul. The first split creates your soul mate. The second split creates your twin flame. Then you have, what do we got? Then you end up with the third split, which creates your soul family. Now, because of this, as you can see, the soul family just keeps getting bigger because these are all members of your soul family. Consider these guys way down here as distant cousins. Okay. They're your distant relatives. But you can take a calculator to see how far down this can go. Okay. Now, the soul family extends all the way down, but from a functional standpoint, okay, as far as an even split goes, this happens, and let's see if I remember. I've got it right there. Sure, mumble to yourself. The funny thing is, I look at my computer setup now. I look at my computer setup, and I've got 4 monitors, my printer, my phone, my entire creative desk is over here. But I still work with paper and with a solar calculator. Okay, but let's see here. If we got to turn that on, 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And I want to double check that. I've done that so many times that I keep forgetting what exactly I'm doing, which is really kind of an odd setup. Start the first one, you make the soulmate, then you make the rest of them, but you're looking at 2. Okay, that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and you have the total number you're looking at of functional accountability, if you will. When a soul first comes into existence, its game breaks down completely, but the whole breakdown ends in this number. And come to think of it, I gotta go back and double check what I wrote before. The moment the soul is conceived, before it splits away from its parent to start with, and then scatters. Okay, and what you end up with, and that's where I did it wrong. I do have to check numbers because that's on only one line. I knew I did something funny here. Okay, but when it breaks down, it splits the first time. When it first splits off, it breaks down all the way down here, but it breaks down 12 times, resulting, and I think it did that, but yep, resulting, here we go, in an initial distribution of 2,048 parts. Now, this is why I call this whole live stream, I decided to refer it to as remembering yourself. Well, when you first come into existence, you immediately break down into 2,048 independent yet identical parts to you, where you go off to take a look at you, where you go off to experience as much as you can in the third dimension. Okay. Third dimension literally means where we're living. People keep talking to me about different dimensions, and it may be a question of linguistics. Okay, there are 12 different vibratory rates. Okay, that can all be modified in let's see. If you take 12 at 248, if we take that times 12, there are 24,578 different vibratory rates in the third dimension. And I'm going to have to double check numbers there. But the soulmate breaks into 2,048 component parts to start with. The one primary part, you, hold the knowledge that you are you. Now, of course, here's the neat part. Every one of these 2,048 component parts believe they are you. Okay. That's just across the board. Now, in answer to that question, are you all linked temporarily? In other words, you can tap in. This is where the idea of do we live in different dimensions? The answer is, frankly, from everything I've seen, no. I might be mistaken on that. Do not just take my word for it. Okay. But because you exist in 2,048 different vibratory rates, different locations, all at the same time, and you will cross over, you'll run into each other. This is why every now and again you meet somebody, it's just, I cannot get away with it. I cannot walk away. Now, in my case, my first marriage, okay, the reality was the person I met, okay, and our marriage did not last. It lasted until it was separated, if you will. But when I first met them, I literally told them, I'm going to marry you one day. That was just a statement. It was just a simple statement of, in my eyes, fact. And there's a whole lot that goes into that. But frankly, considering it involves somebody else, I'm not going into it. But the point being, I knew right when I met them that she was one of my potential life mates. Okay, so that went that way. The newest one, my newest partner, this one is going to be extremely important to me. Now, I've connected with other people that I'm absolutely certain are part of my soul family. And by the way, everybody you date, no matter how tight the connection, everybody that you date does not qualify as a member of the soul family. There's a lot of people out there that you'll get along with famously that are just really good people, really good friends. And I am a firm believer that the majority of people out there are decent people. Don't like vertigo. It throws me off every time. But I will bear with it, and hopefully everything will settle down. One of the drawbacks of being me. But everybody you meet is that you get along with is not necessarily it is not necessarily a member of your soul family. It may just be good friends that you may or may not have connected with. Many of the people that I know this lifetime, well, in polite terms, many of the people I know this lifetime, I actually burned at the stake about 400 years ago. Okay, apparently we didn't see eye to eye at that point. A very good friend of mine. Well, she was a good friend of mine. She was my boss for years. Right. We met in a past life. Okay, but that past life was about 600 years earlier. And in that one, I've not always been the way I am. Everybody's got a dark side to them. Okay. One of my past lives, I met a past boss of mine this lifetime. And when we got looking into it, it turned out that we had been partners in literal crime. And I had turned around. Well, it was Lawrence. Lawrence goes, that's harsh. And, really it was. But in that particular lifetime, I was a warlock. I was a witch working for the government. Okay. And therefore, that was my job. But I did take that lifetime and twist it right out of hand. And I will get into that at a different date. But soulmates, many times you'll meet people this lifetime that you get along with. You know you've known them. You know you get along with them. Okay. And they come from past lives, which is another topic we will have to talk about in the future. But the soulmate is the person that when you get together, you just cannot see yourself getting away there. It's not just an intellectual connection. It's an emotional connection that feels like you're really pulled sideways when you're separated. Picture, if you will, taking cotton candy, right? And you pull it as far apart as you can. Eventually, it'll break. But there's always this terrible pull trying to pull. Well, elastics are better because when you pull apart, you're trying to get back. That is one of those funny little things that tells you that this may well be a soulmate of yours. Now, oftentimes people don't even realize that they're soulmates until such time as they end up passing away, and then it connects. There are many times this will happen. Okay. But where that reconnection, where that remerge happens, where these two get back together, when both physical bodies pass, these two will merge to become a higher entity. Now, this is the twin of the soulmate coming together and moving up. Now, the neat thing here is this. When you start looking at the twin flames of the soul family, okay, when they pass together, they too will merge to become a higher entity. Okay, should do that over here. When these two merge, they will merge to become a higher entity. Now, again, these two are soulmates. Okay, as are these two, but the ones from these families are twin flames. Okay. Every time the soulmate merges, it moves up a level and gets closer to this, closer to becoming you. And this is what remembering yourself is all about. Figuring out how to find out how you are, because the more aware you are of what your capabilities are, the more likely you are to find the people you're looking for. The people you're looking for, by the way, from a soul standpoint, is your soulmate. But they may be scattered to the four winds when you first meet them. And this is one of the things that may cause a separation. Okay. It's one of those things that may cause you to really pull sideways and go, yeah, I want to be with that person. I know that's my soulmate. But think of it this way. Okay. Here's your two souls. Okay. This is you and your soulmate. Okay. while you're sitting here, but maybe your soulmate, the one that you know is your soulmate, is way down here and still has a couple of lifetimes they've got to go through in order to get here. Now, you'll keep tabs on this person, but you got to remember, as this happens, we pick one line. Actually, we'll do that this way. Just so you can track the original soulmate, where to go. We'll take this one, and we'll track the original. Okay. Now, I drew that line in here for this reason. Okay. Here's your soulmate. It moves down a step, and now you found one of these is your soul flame, is your twin flame. Everybody down here is your soul family, but here's the thing. This person, this one here, is your root. Okay, and when everybody comes together, it becomes the soulmate. But you may have run into them down here. They've still got 3 lifetimes before they'll get to here. Now, bear in mind, a lifetime boils down to you. There are, when you look at a corporeal human lifetime, you're looking at roughly a 20-year point from the point. I mean, technically, some people will call it, in 13 years, you're able to reproduce, which technically is possible. Okay, and it's getting younger because of the amount of hormones and what have you that are being pumped into the food. But you may find the core of your soulmate before that soulmate figures out where it's standing. And it may be a few lifetimes. It's a very rare occasion where this happens, where you actually meet your soulmate in the corporeal form. Now, I know for an absolute certainty in my case, I don't know whether they are ready yet, but I do know that the one that I've connected with at this point is my soulmate. When I thought, I've got a couple I ran into that are definitely part of my soul family. Some of my past relations, okay, are part of my soul family. But in one in particular, it will be 1,000 years before I reconnect with them. And I know that for an absolute certainty. Okay, how do I know that? That's a little more complicated. But when you're looking at your soulmate, okay, you only have one. As you can see, if you take a look at the numbers of people, you think about it, this individual breaks into 2048. Okay, the moment the soul splits, now this number goes on and on. Okay, that's really bad. This number expands exponentially because every one of those 2048, if we only stop at them, right, we take 2048 times 2048, and now you've got 4 million people. Okay, but those 4 million people are also going to expand again. Okay, and now we have, with those 4 million expanding 2048 times, okay, now you're looking at 8.5 million people. No, that's wrong. 8.5 billion people. Okay, and that's only counting human form. When the soul breaks up, part of you may decide, oh, gee, I desire to gain wisdom and to feel what it is like to be a blade of grass. Kelly, I'll tell you, if you're a blade of grass, more often than not, you get a haircut once a week. Whether you like it or not, you think humans have it bad? Okay, humans get to voluntarily go for a haircut when they choose. If you chose to live your life as a blade of grass, okay, that means you're living in a community. You don't get to walk very far. And once a week, most of the time in the summer, some really nice individual comes along and cuts your hair or cuts the top off your body. Okay, and we'll just chalk it up to hair and be done with that. So you get a forcible haircut once a week if you're grass. Okay. If you decide you're going to experience being a tree, okay, you don't get to walk very far. Okay, there are trees on this planet, by the way, and I've seen the videos of them. I knew they were there before anyway, but there are things called walking trees. Now, a walking tree is quite frankly an arboreal. Okay, and that's one of the neat little things here. When I start looking at the information I'm sitting on, okay, I've got a whole pile. Like I take most of this information and do my best to put it into paper, onto paper, which is where the different books that are listed below this video, that's where they come in. Only 2 of them are available on Amazon on authorhouse.com. Indigo Chapters, there's a number of places out there, including Barnes and Noble, where 2 of the books I've written are available. The rest of them have to be ordered directly through me. But when we're talking about the way soulmates work, the biggest misconception is so many people have been told that a soulmate is the person you spend your life with. That is not a soulmate. That is a life mate. And I will tell you, if you find a life mate that you're really content with, there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. Okay. A life mate is somebody that you can be very content to spend the rest of your life with. And it's like I said, it's not a question of just spending your life with them. It's not somebody to settle down with. Okay, or more to the point, most people seem to get into marriages that what they're doing is they're settling for somebody in order to be in a family confine. Now, the thing people don't realize, it seems, is that when this world was built, when this world was first put together, it was put together with the idea of spirit going and breaking itself down into smaller parts and thereby spending the rest of their life spending life on this planet with another person. 2 people, any gender, any species, under one roof, working together as a pair to turn around and have as many kids of any gender, any race beneath them, following their guidance inside that home. Now, you'll notice I said any gender, any race, any income, it doesn't matter. Okay. 2 people, the idea of life here on Earth was so 2 people so that the corporeal form could experience life on minimal senses, as in we've got 5 and a rudimentary 6th. Most people have 5 with a rudimentary 6th. In my case, I was born with, let's see, you got your 5 basic, your 5 extended. Okay, 5 extended, your 5 basic are the easy ones. Taste, touch, sight, smell, and hearing. That's right. Okay, but then you've got, now that's the 5 that most people get. Okay, and then everybody is born with a rudimentary 6th, which means all the rest bring the information in. Now you've all got this capacity and the soul pulls it in even faster. Okay. Because of the length of time I've been around. Okay, and that number just goes right into bizarre numbers. Okay, but you get the initial 5 sentences and a rudimentary 6. Then you've got the 5 extended senses. Okay, which are your clairvoyance, your clairaudience, your clairsentience. I heard it said one day that the extended sense of smell is clairosmic. Okay. And, and now we start getting into the really confusing part. But what you're looking at is clear seeing, clear hearing, clear smelling, clear tasting, and clear touch. It was the taste I missed the word on. And I'm still looking for that word. But that's 10 right off the bat. Now, those are all corporeal forms. Now, you got to remember, when we're dealing with the soul senses, you start going into sensing different energy wavelengths, different auditory wavelengths, the ability to sense different levels of radiation. These are things the soul can sense. By the way, with the soul, it can also create them. Now, one of the things that most people don't realize is when you're dealing with creating energy, you're really not creating it, you're simply redirecting it. Okay. And the redirection of energy, you can do it yourself. If you take your hands and you put them, you literally separate them by a 1/4 inch, right? You just separate them just that little bit, and you'll feel some energy running between them. Understanding that corporeal energy, the bioelectrics or biomagnetics, okay, can be generated at staggering levels. Okay, now I've mentioned this term to people before, the biomagnetoelectric flux. That is the energy I'm talking about that sits between your hands when you hold your hands like this. Okay, go ahead and give it a try. See what you think. I'd love to hear your comments in the comments below. But that is your biomagnetoelectric flux. That's the shift in the energy that you feel right there. Now, as you focus on it, you can make it stronger. And understanding energy runs both directions at the same time. This is something that the soul knows. Now, the neat part about it is this. Okay, this is where soul meets solidity. You take your hands like that, and you concentrate on them. And while you're concentrating on them, concentrate on the strength of that energy level and separate your hands while you can still feel that pressure. Okay. Now, in my case, I cannot get my hands far enough apart anymore that I can't feel it. Of course, in all fairness, I can do it across the room with somebody else. Can't do it across the room with myself. I don't know. I'm 5'8". My hand span is probably 5'4", if I've got the hands turned sideways. Well, that unfortunately will not deal with a 10-foot room. Lawrence, the answer is yes. That is a term that I've heard used before. Okay. It is a psionically generated or a psychically generated energy ball. And what you're doing, so as you obviously well know. Yes, absolutely, Bernadette. Okay, this is what's called live action testing. Okay, for those of you that haven't tried it yet, if you picture putting your hand on the top of a bubble jet, of a bubble jet bathtub where the water's boiling is rolling, I do not recommend doing some ways to get water rolling. That's okay, Bernadette. I've heard it described this way. Okay, I'm glad it's feeling warm. I've heard some people describe it like, I had one child describe it when they tried it as it felt like bubbles. Some people will feel bubbles. Some will feel an energy pulse. Some will feel cold. Okay. And if I had it, I'd show you what can happen. But no, I wouldn't. That's rude. But that energy, when you get that hand, okay, and this is the power of the soul over the physical body. Now, religion has taken things and said, if you think about it, they turn around and say God created man in God's image. Well, first of all, God wasn't bipedal. But the energy you're talking that you're experiencing using, okay, that is the energy. When I talk about sitting there and in order to put your body back in shape, okay, and I'm not perfect at it. I've got some weak points that I haven't figured out how to deal with. Okay, or more to the point, I'm having hiccups with them. But when you take that energy, okay, and you separate your hands that far, okay, what can happen? No, can't get my knee up that high, so I'm not going to. Okay, what can happen is let's use the calculator, and I've got to do it this way. Okay, you generate that ball, and you separate your hands far enough that you can get a solid object. Lawrence, this literally applies to you. Okay, now your own soul energy will not cause damage to you. Okay, it cannot hurt itself. Okay, when you get it that far apart, you can place it on either side of a wounded area. Now understand something very, very critical here. This is in tandem with what the doctors and the pharmacists are doing. This is not replacement. This is to be used to bolster what's going on. Granted, it may well confuse them on the healing rates. If you take a look here, I don't know if you can see it, but I've got a scar that runs that long. Okay. Now, when I broke it so bad they had to bolt it. Okay. The doctors told me, because of the type of break it was, they told me I'd be 4 to 6 months before it even started to heal. Okay. By taking one hand, and bear in mind, this ball, this energy pattern that you're building, okay, can be generated, it can be held just like you can build a ball right here, so that when you're holding on to it, you can feel it between your fingertips. Okay, this is the same principle as having two separate hands. Okay, you hold them yay far apart, and as they get stronger, what you'll find happen is you'll feel that pulse kind of pushing away. At that point, now I'm going to do it with the one hand. If you can see this is great. Okay. But this is the trick to healing. Now, I cannot call myself a Reiki master because I have never been trained in Reiki, ever. Okay. But the method I use is I build that energy field, and of course, by simply curling the fingers, you can feel the pressure on your own hands. Okay, but you separate your hands that far, and as you drop it down over an object, okay, now needless to say, number one, I don't have 3 hands. Okay, but let's say this is the damaged part of your body in question. Okay, as you bring your hand down, and bear in mind, just picture the other hand over here. As you bring it down, you may feel that energy level drop. Stop momentarily, refocus your energy, and build that energy level back up. And what ends up happening is you bring your hand down so it sits around the palm where the real heavy flow is. Okay. You feel that passing all the way from this hand to this one. Okay, right through the object that you're trying to repair. Now, the neat part of that is this. Okay, by doing that, when I broke my arm, okay, I took my hand, and all I did was built that energy level and ran it up and down my arm over top of where the break was. Now, the neat part that threw the doctors for a loop is I broke the arm at roughly 7 in the morning when I broke the arm at roughly 7 in the morning on March 3rd of 2004. Okay. By 7 o'clock that night, I was in a different city getting my arm rebuilt. There's a whole lot of story that goes with that. Okay. But when I went back on March 12th of 2004, by using this method that I've just talked about, okay, you just run your hand down over the wound. Okay. This is in tandem to what the doctor did. Now understand, my first step was I went to the doctor. I went to the hospital, one of the few trips I made in there that I stayed. And, I didn't argue with them. But they bolted it back together. And then while it is bound, all I did was run my hand down it. And you'll notice, actually, I don't think you can. It's not actually physically touching. When you're dealing with energy work, if you physically have to touch it, if the person says, I need to make physical contact, they're not doing energy work. Okay, they're not doing true, clear energy work. They may well be helping, i.e. acupuncture, acupressure. I believe it's called pranic healing, but I might be mistaken on that. These are methods that use physical contact. Okay, Reiki, you do not need physical contact. Now, don't get me wrong. You can, when you have physical contact, it does make it sometimes easier to piece it together. Okay, but when I did this, just up and down over the damage, not touching the limb, okay, using the energy of the soul, transmuted, if you will, into biomagnetoelectric energy. What I did was accelerate the healing in my body. I reminded my body how to heal. Net result, in 9 days, I healed the broken bone. Okay. Now, frankly, I'm a firm believer any one of you can do the same thing. I take that one step further, and I had a client brought to me that was told that the doctors had said, look, we know you're only 17 years old, but we're really sorry you're stuck in a wheelchair for the rest of your life. Using the method I just talked about. Okay. Separating your hands far enough to put it on either side of the wound of the damaged area. Using that method, okay, I turned around and reminded their body how to heal. Net result, after an hour and a half, 2 hours work, and of course, my energy levels run a lot higher than some. Not as high as all of them. But I work directly on the person's foot chakras. Okay. If you take a look at the ball of the foot chakra sits right in the center of it, right behind the ball. Okay. Right in there. If these are your toes, and that's the ball of your foot there, your foot chakra sits right here. By working on that, using what Lawrence has identified as a psi ball, okay, I accelerated their healing and I reminded the body how to heal and how to reconnect itself. And this whole topic of healing, obviously, I'm going to have to go into it in a little while, in another session. But we should make that known. Because I will go into this idea, and this will tick off a number of people, I'm sure of it. But using that soul energy, you've still got full tact and full access to it. And this is what many people don't realize. Yes, you're in corporeal form, but you are capable of tapping into that energy to remind your body how to work. Now, at another time, I will cover a much more in-depth conversation regarding how healing itself works. But by doing that, I simply accelerated and reminded the body how to accelerate its own healing. But this is done in tandem, in conjunction with the work the doctors are doing. Now, we're not going to go into my outlook on doctors because, well, frankly, it's a little less than functional. Don't get me wrong. They were absolutely on the money putting my arm back together. But you will find, and this is another indicator of whether you found your soulmate. Okay. If your energy levels are, regardless of what your personalities are like, if your energy frequency is of a real solid compatibility, that energy transference can happen at much greater distances, because the more connected you are, the stronger that connection happens. Okay. But the soulmate that's the one that everybody's looking for, but it doesn't really merge until you both physically die. This is why sometimes what you'll find happen. Thank you so much, Bernadette. Bernadette has had to take off here, which is unfortunate, but let's face it. Kids really, if you bring them into the world, they really do take dominant precedence. But you only have one soulmate. This is not a question of picking who you would like to be your soulmate. There's all kinds of times when you look at somebody and go, gee, I would really like to connect with that person. Okay, the fact that you feel a draw to them, that you feel a real solid connection, may just be a close friend. And granted, you could have run into that person in past lifetimes and been absolutely inseparable. And again, this is another issue when we start looking at what the soul has been through. By the way, I don't know if they're in the room yet. Okay. I see we've got four people in the room right now, and I'm hoping this grows a lot more. Okay. But in case the individual in question, I forget exactly who it was, when they get the man, get it. Next week, I am going to be talking about life in Atlantis, and specifically what happened at the end of Atlantis. Okay. A topic that now, do understand I've never researched Atlantis to speak of. Yes, I saw the ley lines on the Bimini Islands. Okay. Good morning, Poetically Mistaken. Welcome aboard. Next week, right now we're talking soulmates, soul family, twin flames, and that side of it. Next week, regardless of the other topics that I've got to cover, I will be dealing with Atlantis during the final days, how far it had gone, all kinds of information about it. But I've been asked multiple times by one individual in particular on multiple different venues for information about Atlantis itself. Now, this is not going to be information based on what the researchers said. This is because I actually lived there. No, I'm not about to try and prove it. But when we take a look at the soul, the soulmate, all of that, there is so much more to it. Carl, welcome aboard. The reality is that there is so much more to the soulmate connection and to soul families and why they connect that it is just absolutely bizarre. Now, you do have this other little group of people. Okay, you've got your soul family, which we've already discussed, which is this one here, where you've got your soulmate, the soul, then you've got your soulmate, and then all of this down here, this level is where your twin flame comes. And then everything below here, all the way down, is where the soul family comes into existence. But there is one other group here that I should put here. Where is it? Trying to get my hand to work and it's not cooperating at all. And rest assured, having had a stroke, that is an annoying little aspect. Of course, I had the stroke 3 years ago, so I should probably not complain too much about it. But here's the other group of people that we forget about. Okay. We're going to draw two souls and just do this. Okay. Now, Let's just make that complicated. Okay, now what we have here, and again, my drawing is something to be remarkably ignored. Now, this is two souls that are not connected. These are just two independent souls. There's no connection between them except friendship. Okay. Now, this is a soul and all of its soul family down here. Another soul and all of its soul family down here. And here's the third one. Okay, and all of its soul family. This whole group is your group of soul friends. And as you can see, if you're looking at right off the bat, if you're looking at 2048 in each family that we've already calculated, okay, where did my, there it is. Put these things down and forget where they are. Okay, so right off the bat, okay, the moment that you look at that, a soul comes into existence and immediately breaks down into 2048 component parts in order to be able to disperse itself amongst that many different inner life forms. Okay, now those life forms can be anything. Energy, plant, animal, doesn't matter. Okay, solid, liquid, gas. The ones that we usually refer to are the ones that have chosen to take a corporeal form in a humanoid body. Okay, because for some reason, modern society does not think that marrying a blade of grass is a good idea. I have heard it where people have been legally married, and you'll love this one. Poetically, yeah. Poetically mistaken is just commenting about the past life memories of Atlantis and Lemuria. I'm not entirely, in all fairness, poetically mistaken. You mentioned the term Tartarian. I'm presuming if you're referring to that by the extrapolation I'm making, I presume you're referring to a past life in what many people would call hell. Okay, that seems to be the root of Tartarian. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, if you would be kind enough to do so. Raven, welcome aboard. I have heard concepts where people have, according to their area, legally gotten married. One in particular, I know of a guy that purportedly married a cow. Now, where are we here? Yeah, okay. That one's going to be an entertaining one because there's a whole lot when I get into that one, considering that's what we're referring to. And this is why I say, poetically mistaken. This is why I say I know names by different terms than other people. Okay. But I will have to make a point of that, and therefore I'm going to do that right now. Okay. Now I'm already looking at making one. Where did my pen go? Right there. I will be dealing with healing down the road. Atlantis will absolutely be done next week. Down the road, I will have to deal with healing, which is going to take people that practice Reiki, and it's going to annoy them in all likelihood, or it'll open the doors. I have Reiki masters coming to me because of the fact I heal at a faster rate. And the reason I do that is I don't have the limitations put upon myself. But the Tartarian Empire, when we take a look at that life, okay, when we take a look at that particular life, trying to remember how to spell, that's all. Have I spent time there? Absolutely. But I will tell you, what you've been taught about hell and what goes on there are two very different things. Yes, I spend a lot of time down there. That's why the joking, that's one of the reasons I don't fear dying. You know, the standing joke around here is God doesn't want me and Satan's afraid it'll take over. Okay. But that's a discussion for down the road. Okay, but when we take a look, where did we put it? Sure, buried it. Now we can't find it. This group, okay, you take, and that's just taking 3. You, a friend of yours, and a third friend. You're already friends as in spirit form. The moment you come in, the moment you come into corporeal existence, you shear everything down into 248 component parts. This being said, multiply that by 3, and we have 6,144 friends right now, right off the bat, before you even get started. With this in mind, okay, you know, even the loneliest people on the planet, if they've got even one friend in spirit form when they get here, right off the hop, they jump to an extra 24, 2,048 friends right away. So, in all fairness, we are no longer looking at being alone. When we talk about everything being connected, it literally means that all life is connected. And the soul is simply another way of examining that. Okay, but the soul does not come to an end when the universe closes in on itself again. And it does this regularly. This pulse of the universe that we see in the more advanced sciences of mankind, they show that the universe itself is expanding and contracting. This is normal. Okay. This has been done multiple times. And yes, I've been around since before that. Okay. But that's another discussion for another day. But the reality of it is all people come from the same place. Okay. Now, we could get into that side of it too, but here's the thing with the soulmate. When you find that one individual that you really connect with, okay, one of the other things you'll find, and I'm sure you're aware of this, you know, I'm sure some of you are aware of this, especially as Lawrence has pointed out in the past, and like earlier in the chat room here, he pointed out that he and his other half are polar opposites. Okay, now one of the indicators of a solid soulmate connection is, regardless of being polar opposites, you don't fight. Okay, you will certainly have differences of opinion, but there is a very big difference between a difference of opinion and fighting or striving. There's no control. There's no striving to control. None of that exists. Okay. But it's not a question of learning to tolerate or learning to adjust. It just is something that doesn't evolve. Okay. This is one of the dead giveaways that you're likely dealing with a soulmate connection, or at the very mild side of it, a twin flame connection. Okay. The stronger that connection, the stronger your tendency to get along, the better, the closer you are to finding that soulmate. Now, sometimes you'll just flat out know. Okay. But your knowing, and even your knowing and turning around and telling your other half, I know you're my soulmate, does not work as well as you might think. Okay. Because they will know when they reach that point for themselves. But you telling them it's going to happen, or that that's the way it feels, is not going to make them see it your way. And this is the same reason why warning people about going down a certain path isn't, that's fantastic, Lawrence. See, the neat little thing is, I heard it put this way: a discussion is an exchange of ideas. An argument is an exchange of ignorance. Okay. conflicts, there have to be different viewpoints. If you don't have different viewpoints, you won't be evolving at all. I knew of one person that was not corrected in their quite seriously misguided viewpoint. Now, I didn't know the person personally, but I did find out about the person where I was growing up. Okay, their child worshipped a light bulb. That was his representation of God. Now, in a nutshell, the parents knew he was off kilter, but there was nothing anybody could do for him. So they just went and changed the light bulb once a week to make sure it never burnt out. Well, that worked out fantastic for years. From what I gather, he was close to a quarter century old, maybe a little older than that. On the one day that they forgot, in the 1 week that they forgot to change the light bulb, in the middle of his prayers, the light bulb burnt out. Well, the guy, and this is why I said his concept had to be changed beforehand, if at all possible. Apparently, it wasn't, because when that light bulb popped, his mind snapped. Okay, and he spent the rest of his life in a facility where he was essentially he was completely devoid of mental functioning. They literally had to feed him, change him the whole 9 yards in the facility for the rest of his life because everything else was gone. Now, the funny thing about it is, and I'm not immune to this, okay, conflicts happen when there is an ego involved. Now, the soul does not have an ego. The soul simply knows whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent, and it doesn't have a hold on, I have to be right. Conflicts amongst corporeals happen because their ego gets in the way, and they start fighting this idea of control. Okay, that's where the conflict comes in. When you have people trying to force you to do something that to you doesn't make sense or doesn't feel right. Soulmates don't have that problem. They just get along. Now, this is one of the reasons why I know for an absolute certainty, from my standpoint, they're still working on it. But like I said, I can wholeheartedly a walkout, walk-in situation. Thank you for bringing that one up, poetically mistaken. The a walkout, walk-in situation. I will have to discuss that on another one. This is why, I'm making notes of these. I've got other ones listed where I've got to be dealing with. As a matter of fact, give me half a sec because I'm just going to walk across the room. What am I looking at here? That's not there. Okay. Well, I was just looking because I've got other ones written down that I'm going to have to deal with as well. Some of the other topics that I'm dealing with, it will be numerology, not the least of which is base 12. Now, there's somebody out there that is claiming to be working with base 12 numerology, but there are some critical flaws I noticed with their calculations. And I will be discussing how numerology works, what the vibratory rate and what have you works with. But yes, where did I just put my pen? Watch this. I took it over. Nope, I buried it. Okay. So I am making a note here. I cannot tell you when I'm going to end up dealing with it. Okay. But I will discuss walk-ins. Okay, walk-ins, walk-outs, that whole issue. That's not surprising. Multiple fours, you're talking about foundation. Okay. That being said, you're looking at, and I suspect if you've got multiple fours hounding you, you're going through a pretty massive transformation where you're rebuilding, redesigning your life. Okay, and this is a great setup. Now, from my standpoint, I will be dealing with walk-ins. I'll deal with the Tartarian life that people live, that many people have lived. And frankly, there's a lot of lifetimes out there. Okay, that create interesting situations. But the only one I can absolutely state, and I've said this multiple times, I will be dealing with Atlantis tomorrow. Well, correction. I will be dealing with Atlantis next week. Now, as you can see, I've got Atlantis, healing, Tartarian, walk-ins, and I've got this topic of numerology base 12. No, I'm not going to be trying to teach people all the bits and pieces of numerology. That's for you to study. Just the baseline. Okay. But some of the topics that I'm going to be dealing with, I'm looking at by the week, so we're already looking at right off the bat. Now, some topics are going to upset people. There's no question there at all. Okay. But I've already got 2 months of 2 months of different topics to deal with. I don't know what order they're going to come in. I may end up adding some in the middle of it. This is why I say, yeah, I absolutely will be dealing with Atlantis next week. Everything else will have to wait. Okay, but if you've got a topic, that you desire to learn about, absolutely drop me a line in the comment section. Or if you look below this video, you'll find a whole section of ways of getting a hold of me if you'd like to make a request or ask a question that you don't desire the rest of the world to see right off the hop. Absolutely drop me a note in private. Okay, I'm not that hard to find. I just have a hectic schedule is all. But if you're striving to contact me through phone, through email, through messengers, and through Skype, any of it, when you reach out, make absolutely certain you tell me who you are and where the connection is, where there is something to where I know you from, as it were, or where you heard of me. The reason I do that is I can't count the number of times that I get people calling from unknown numbers or dropping me messages. Like I had one the other day, drop me a message. We had a really good conversation. I'm like, I have no idea who you are. So I literally asked them, I said, who are you? So I've got an idea. Well, they filled me in, and as it was, there was a connection. We had the conversation. But I talk to so many people when I am out and about, okay, or when I'm on the radio, when I'm on YouTube, okay, that knowing who people are, where are we here? Carl just sat down. Okay. Now, I'm going to throw a real wrench into all of this. What you're looking at there, Carl, Carl has just handed me, he's just entered into the chat room, the numerological breakdown of his birth date. Now, that method that you're talking about is what is termed as Pythagorean numerology. That is standard numerology. And standard numerology is a great thing. It has some pretty critical flaws to it, but it works for humans on the basics. Okay. So, not discounting this, but I will tell you that number will be very different. And if you'd like, I can certainly calculate it out and get the number back to you because it's a lot more mathematically. Oh, my apologies. Okay. Except for the fact that we aren't in July. We're in May. Yeah, I guess that couldn't be your birthday being 22. But no, so that July 6th of 2022, well, that isn't actually today's date. But that's okay. So we just changed that to a 5. It'll alter things a whole pile. 11, what do we got? 11, 13, 15, 17, which is an 8. Yeah, today's date would be based on the vibratory rate of 8. Okay. Now 8 is an interesting number. Okay. But what you're using there, Carl, is Pythagorean numerology. Okay. I don't know what the actual term is for base 12 or what the term people use. I just call it base 12 and be done with it. But there is a reason for that. Okay. Pythagorean works on base 9. Okay. Which is why when you hit 10, it goes back to 1. But we'll get into that on another day. But I can absolutely look at people's date and do the calculation and figure it out in base 12. But I will tell you, it is a very different number than what you might be thinking. You know, Carl, poetically, you call yourself an 86 kid. Well, here's the funny part. When I was growing up, when you 86 something, right, it had a very derogatory outlook on it, you know, in a lot of ways. Because you 86 the file that you were done working with, meaning you drop it in the garbage. So I'm not entirely certain. I'd have to do the calculation, but an 86 kid doesn't necessarily always sound quite right. Okay. But when we're dealing, the whole thing is all of this is interconnected. I like the way it was put in the show, in the Marvel show, Doctor Strange, when it was explained that an MRI, you know, you take a look at an MRI, a picture of the nerves. When you take a look at the MRI, the picture of the nerve outlay, chakras, when you look at all of those, at the skeletal system, the whole 9 yards, people are looking at the picture through an extremely tiny keyhole. When you start looking at the heat thermal imaging, at your UV imaging, all of these are different ways of looking at the same thing. Okay, but they're only seeing small pictures. Now, for those of you that actually tested this neat little method out of putting your hands just about a quarter inch apart and feeling the energy between your hands, okay, that is another way of measuring, of observing your surroundings. Okay, that biomagnetoelectric field that is around every organism. Okay, that field is what many people refer to as an aura. No, I said 2,048 ways. Okay, and Carl, when you go, I'm 9 months late, October 30th. Yeah, I know what you mean, but the problem is you weren't late. The doctors missed on the date. You were right on time for when you were intending on getting here. Kind of like the rest of your life. Do things your way and let everybody else figure it out after the fact. But yeah, the soul itself splits initially 2,048 times right off the bat. Okay. Ultimately, each cell splits in 12 times. That's okay, Raven. I only woke up about 45 minutes before I came on air. So, you know, I was a little scattered to start with myself. You know, but all of these topics I'm talking about, I will get back to. That's why I make a list of them. It's just the longer the list gets, the longer it's going to, and I know it'll grow fast. But this just gives me something to focus on. This is why I've broken things down with my YouTube channel itself, where on the odd days I'm going to be dealing with the home, with the even days I'm going to be dealing with the house, and how to take your energy and redirect it so you can get the life that you desire to have. Now, all of these tools that I talk about are ones I personally use myself. The life rules and the laws I live by, okay, are the ones I talk about are the ones I personally live by. Yes, today would be an odd day. Okay, which means sometime this afternoon, because when I get done this video, I've got a little bit of time, and then I've got a consultation I've got to deal with. Plus, of course, life gets in the way. But before the end of the day, I will be doing another video, I believe they called it a vlog. Okay. I'm glad you enjoyed it, Raven. The reality, and I get asked this so many times, the information I've got comes from memory or personal experience. But the problem is that my memories date back. I literally remember watching Earth get built. Okay, which gives you an idea of how long I've been here. And curiosity put me in a rather unique situation. Okay, most people, when they die, when they pass away, they move on wherever they choose. Can you merge with another entity and trap yourself to them? The answer is definitively yes. I'm living proof of it. Although how I prove it, I have no idea. But because of my own curiosity, I ended up merging with Esau at the moment of her conception. Okay, I ended up trapping myself in a sense where my next several lifetimes, as in from Terran standpoints, about 5 billion, maybe 6 billion years, I will be reincarnating on Earth. Okay, and given what I'm here for, I'll be here for a while. Likely repeating the same idea, just with new people. Okay, because I came here to spread one simple message, and that is that working together, we can make this a better world for everybody, for virtually everybody. But this whole idea of soul friends, okay, is why we are so well connected. Now, on Earth, where it comes to humans, there is this theory of 6 degrees of separation, meaning you know somebody personally, and they know a bunch of people. Well, you go out 6 people, and the odds are that you've met everybody on the planet. Okay. And that's just the way, this is one of the reasons why we can all interact. We've all lived multiple lifetimes. There is not an individual on Earth. And as far as I'm aware, there's not one in existence. But there's not one on Earth that has only had one lifetime. Okay. And I don't mean one lifetime on Earth. We've all got a past. And yeah, poetically, I am definitively in it for what you would consider the long haul. For me, with my memories and what I've seen, that 5 billion that I've still got to spend here is a drop in the bucket. It's a blink of an eye, because I remember so much further beyond, but it goes way outside the norm of trying to explain it in a functional method. And like I said last night on the radio, I look at my own life and go, this is absolutely don't like that. Anyway, Raven, that is absolutely mistaken. Don't get me wrong. What Raven has said is, I have read that souls that were in Atlantis that all the souls that were in Atlantis are here now at this time to heal their trauma. No. Many of the souls from Atlantis never came back to Earth. Okay. But there are a number of souls that are here from Atlantis. I met one in particular. Many souls that were in Atlantis have come back here to heal the trauma from Atlantis. But most of them don't know why they came back, because most of them died like that. As a matter of fact, one of the ones that I met, the one that was, in his eyes, responsible for the problem with Atlantis. And in all fairness, after we had a discussion, he and I back then were friends, and we found that out the hard way, taking a look at it. But yes, many people that were in Atlantis do come back here to heal it, but they are not all here right now. Because frankly, if there were that many Atlanteans on Earth right now, there would be a whole lot of different things going on, but we'll get into that next week. Okay. But many times what will happen is you go through a trauma. Earth is a wonderful place to release some of the trauma, some of the negative stuff you've gone through, and to remember some of the positive stuff. Okay. Here's a neat little example for you. My Tartarian life, okay, gave me a real good look at the way some entities are. It also showed me a way of finding out. My time there enabled me to see how it is that literally every individual in existence can change. The question is not, can you change the way your life is going? The question is, do you know how? Do you have any clue how to do it? Now, you can do it my way, which was ask nobody for help and figure it out as you go along. Recommendation, don't do that. Okay. It took me until literally only 2 months ago, I figured out what I had done backwards. Okay. And I've been coming in this lifetime. Well, you think about it, I've got a list, I think, of 18 or 20 lifetimes already documented on Earth. Most importantly, when we take a look at that, obviously I remember this life. My last life, I was in the American military based out of Chicago. I was a very violent individual. The lifetime before that, okay, like that would be 1900s. I was in the First World War, which might give you an idea. Okay. Then at the beginning in 1828, I was a fisherman in Ireland. Prior to that, in 1760, I was in Louisiana. Okay. I was running a plantation. Now, all of these lifetimes tie together. Okay. But what I came back for this lifetime is to help people understand that the trauma you've gone through, it is past. It is stuff you cannot do much with. But there are ways of working with it to put that negative past to rest. Okay, the trick is having somebody turn the lights on. And I will tell you this, if you're following a spiritual guide that is telling you to fear whoever, okay, you're being guided down the wrong road. Okay, I shouldn't say the wrong road, but you are being guided down a road that is a very long way around. Because eventually you'll come to the point, not of liking everybody, because you don't have to like everybody on the planet. I have a problem dealing with people personally that are closed-minded. Okay, and I find that as I do have a temper I'm well aware of, fortunately, it only tends to be a verbal temper. Okay, I have a tendency of putting my foot in my mouth. Okay. Yeah, I'm just going back through a question here poetically. Yeah, there will be more future videos and books. I'm working on, and one day I keep thinking I should do it, and I'm going to do that before I go on and before I do my vlog today. I'm going to figure out how many books I'm actually currently writing. Okay, but this is one that's sitting right here that I'm bringing up. This is only in booklet form. Okay, but I will be turning this book into a much more much more concise. Still a small book. Okay. But it explains how to actually make your money work. Okay. This is one of those things that is very misguided. And there's lots of people that write great books on all sorts of things. I write in 5 genres myself. Okay. And those 5 genres are science fiction, science fantasy, depending on who you talk to, self-help, reference, poetry, and children's. Okay. And that is very true. I have yet to see anybody that all of a sudden knows what they're doing. I mean, let's face it. Even if you look at some of the greatest minds, okay, some of the greatest minds have gone through some of the most heavily traumatized lifetimes. Okay. And many of the biggest wake-up calls best, that came out well, some of the best changes that take place with people, especially in business. Okay, and that is the thing. The neat little part here. Oh, that I will absolutely do. And if that Raven is asking if I will just do a show about the elves, and I absolutely will. Matter of fact, let's see here. It'll probably be because of the fact I try and do these in order. Okay, but they don't always stay that way. But I will absolutely do my best to get one done on the elephant. Okay. Absolutely, Raven. We will get to that. And if you keep an eye on things, I will make sure to let you know. Okay. The neat part about it is that all of these things, this is why I say I just don't have, like when I go on the show on Spaced Out Radio, we concentrate on questions, usually very short answers, but there is so much more behind them that I just don't have the time to go into. Okay. Now, I think what I'm going to have to do, and I'd love your guys' input even in the chat room right now, but I've been starting off at 8 o'clock, starting into the topic of the day. I'm thinking I'm probably better off waiting, what do you think, 15 minutes, half an hour, before I get into the real meat of the topic. And Paranormal Chop Shop has just arrived. I'm thinking maybe I should postpone, still start at 8 o'clock. That won't change. But before I get into the real meat of the topic, I think probably, well, thank you so much, Raven. I think probably I should wait the first 15 minutes, absolutely talk, but get to the real backbone of it about 15 minutes in, giving people a chance to get here. Okay. And I'd love your input as for whether or not that's a good idea. Whether wait the 15 minutes or if half an hour is a better option. Okay, and deal with the smaller component parts of it before I get into the backbone. And look at it this way. If Raven goes, good, I'm hopelessly always late. Well, look at the bright side. When you go to die, maybe you'll be late for that one too. Lord knows I already screwed up my death date. Doctors were kind enough to diagnose me as dead when I was 5. I didn't agree with them, so I walked out. I walked out of the morgue. And yes, I did end up with confirmation before my father passed that is literally what happened. So I mean, from my standpoint, it really boils down to an issue of yeah, good idea. You say late, I say divine timing. I'll tell you, there are days where I question whether that was all that great either. But the neat part is the closer you get to being complete yourself, the better your connection with the higher senses goes. Okay. I had a conversation just, I guess, almost 2 years ago now. I had a direct conversation with who you would call God or who you would call Gaia. I call them mother and father. Okay. And they are not, I don't call them mom and dad. My mom and dad died, 3 and 5 years. And mom died 3 years ago. Dad died 6 years ago, I think. He died in 2016. Yeah. So he died 6 years ago. Right. But mother and father are who I refer to when I'm looking at my soul side of it. But we are talking about so long ago, it's just absolutely nuts. Because the soulmate is not, it's not only a couple of years old. People that say there are very few souls that start on Earth. Most of you have had a lifetime elsewhere. The thing is, when you come back to this world, when you come into human corporeal form, the physical mind does not hold it that well. Okay. The human mind can only contain so much information. So what you have is you've got a bunch of links to other books you can go and take a look at, which is where the Akashic records come in. Okay, when you look at the Akashic records, that's where all the memories are stored. That is, if you take a look at the old show, it wasn't an old show, a number of years back, there was an animated show that came out, partially animated, called Avatar. And what they call the soul tree, or what is referred to as the world tree, that holds all of the information. But we are not talking about a physical tree. Okay. And yeah, referring to them as Lord and Lady works out quite nicely. It's another term of respect. It is not a term of worship. It's a term of respect. Okay. And there is a very big difference. One of the neat little things that I discovered was when you start worshiping people, that's something that humans like. Myself, like people have said I'm an expert. I am no expert in anything. I barely managed to make it through the day being me. But am I a specialist? Absolutely. Okay. Because that's where my focus has been. But it was only 2 months ago that it really sunk into me. And oddly enough, what was it? And this is why Monday's going to be a little strange. Okay. Because I do on odd days, I deal with the home. On even days, I deal with the house. On the weekends, I will be dealing with live streams of whatever. Of other major topics. This coming weekend, I will be dealing with Atlantis. Okay, and I've got this other list. But starting this Monday, I'm going to be focusing on one critical factor. Okay, and that will just be on my normal YouTube channel, so it's only going to be a half hour at a time. Okay. I will be dealing with unity, about the reality behind what is separating people. Carl, I will absolutely deal with that. What Carl's asked is for me to deal with the doppelganger theory. Okay. And I'm adding that to my list right now. I can't tell you when I'm going to do it, but the fact that it's on the list does mean that I will be dealing with it. Okay. This is one of the reasons why I talk so often. Why I talk about this idea of making a list to stay on track. Okay. The short answer to your question, Raven, is yes. You are now you yourself, okay, are one component of 2048 parts. And yes, because there is a link with all of them, okay, albeit kind of tenuous on occasion, that is why you come up with this idea of parallel. But okay, Sometimes they're parallel, sometimes they're lines that you're looking at going, where did that come from? They may seem parallel, and what they are is a very similar life that you went through in the past. Okay. And again, just to be clear, when we're talking about these topics, especially on the live stream, okay, or for that matter, on the other ones, I do not research. This is why when people ask me on the show, well, what can you tell me about this ranch or about this site? I haven't been very to many of them, and I don't read the write-ups on them. Okay, I do know from the number of people I've talked to that have gone to Sedona, I do know some of what goes on there by reference. Have I been there to personally experience it? No. Okay. So, I mean, from that standpoint, we have to take a look at, you got to realize that this is only one aspect, and that's why, where are we here? That is why I say double check your own information. But yeah, there is no question that because of the way the soul splits itself up, and understand when you split it up, it is 2048 identical copies to the level above it. Okay. But they are all linked. As in, there is a connection. This is why sometimes you can feel like you're talking to yourself, because sometimes you are. But it does have a real neat doorway that it opens. I want, in all honesty, Raven, yeah, I kind of figured that was supposed to say guy. I have no question that he advertised it. Okay. When I look at this idea of I can teach you how to quantum jump, I question whether or not he can, but I question everything. I question whether I'm sitting on the chair I'm on right now. But I'm not going to say that the guy is full of it by any means. I don't know enough about him. But I will say this. There are some dangers to physically jumping. There are some very, very serious dangers to it. And I mean, it's kind of like taking, advertising something like that. It's kind of like saying, I can teach people and I can't do this, rest assured. I know somebody that can. But it's kind of like telling somebody, I can teach kindergarten dropouts how to work with nitroglycerin. Now, can it be done? Certainly. Is it a bright idea? In my opinion, not at all. But I'm not saying he can't do it. I'm just saying I've got a lot of questions around the safety of it. Okay. When I talk about being able to teach somebody something, when I talk about being able to teach people how to straighten their life out, I've spent the last 48 years teaching people how to take their life from where it is and get it to where they desire it to be. Now, for me, it's been a work in progress because I've had to figure it out on my own. Okay, my hope, my goal is to take the knowledge I've got and point people in the right direction, so that you can change your life for what you consider the better. To me, the whole concept of quantum jumping is a way of escaping. Okay. Now, the problem with meeting, and here's a real kicker to this whole idea of meeting your other self head on, is it can cause in the corporeal body a catastrophic brain failure. Okay. You may find that it just backfires in a way that is way too developed. Okay. But am I going to say it can't be done? Not at all. Yeah, poetically mistaken. There is one race that is absolutely, well, they're indistinguishable if you look at them. Okay, their behavior may be another issue, but there is a race of beings that is absolutely physiologically on the surface anyway, indistinguishable from humans. Those are Mobians. Mobians, 40,000 years ago or so, were on Earth. They were human Earthlings, and they colonized Mobius. So yeah, if they come back here, they look identical. Okay, from a physiological standpoint. Their behavioral standpoint, on the other hand, the way they look at the world is very different. But if you just take a look at a photograph of a Mobian or a photograph of a human, they're going to look identical. Unless, of course, the Mobian decides he wants the photograph to screw up. And they can do that quite readily. Okay. But then Mobians are one of these races that can blend into humans in a heartbeat, into a human society in a heartbeat. And because of their ability, they can vanish right in front of your eyes by simply deciding they don't physically want to be visible. But this is not, it's not the same as camouflage. They simply cease to be visible. Okay. And because of that command, because their mind is so far advanced, you'd never know they were here if they don't want you to know. You know, if they desire to stay hidden, they're hidden. There is no technology on Earth that will identify them. Okay. But again, this is because corporeal life can only operate with so much energy before it burns itself out. Okay, and this is why you end up with certain patterns that people have. Certain people have different abilities. I'm not the best of the best. I know a gentleman in particular, one in particular, that he takes that energy field that I talked about, putting your hands this way, and he will literally cause a trackable, quantifiable shockwave across water. Okay, I've seen it done. He's had it tested multiple times. Okay, I know of one gentleman that will start a fire with his bare hands by using that same energy. And this is why I say the quantum magnetic flux, that field, that auric field that people are born with, is workable for both healing and destruction. I recommend the healing because all of it has karmic backlash. And if you start destroying things, it's easier to destroy something than it is to heal it. This is obvious. Sadly, thankfully, where it comes to actually destroying things, humans are still very ill educated on how to do it properly. Okay. And this is actually a good thing. Now, with this in mind, we're just hitting the end. It's been great having you here. I will be here again tomorrow night from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Pacific time. Okay, thanks so much for being here. Love the questions. Got some great ideas. A couple of critical points. I will be dealing with Atlantis next weekend. I will absolutely make certain that I get into these other topics, but I don't know the order they'll come out. I'll let you know as I go along. Next weekend, though, we will deal directly with Atlantis and what goes on there. If you've got more questions where it comes to soulmates and, soulmates, soul families, that sort of thing, join me again tomorrow. If you know people that are interested in that side of it, okay, get them to drop in. I'd love to have them on board. In the meantime, I've got several things I've got to... Yes, Raven, that's 8 p.m. tomorrow. Pacific Standard. Okay, which, that being said, just so you can do it quickly, right now it is 10 o'clock my time. Okay. That's it. I will catch up with you people again in the near future. Thanks again so much. And until we meet again, take care of yourselves and each other. And for pity's sake, stay positive.